The New York Public Library, unlocking the barriers to communication between security and staff. In the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in 2020 and the ongoing crises and challenges that New Yorkers were experiencing during and after the global pandemic, our frontline library staff were feeling very unsafe, unsupported, and confused about policing in our nation in general, in our city, and also in our 92 libraries. The mission of the New York Public Library is to inspire lifelong learning, advance knowledge, and strengthen our communities. Our communities are not only the patrons that we serve, but also our community of staff. In reaction to world events, our frontline staff who work directly with the public created a group called STACS, Staff Taking Action, Creating Safer Spaces. They had specific areas of work that they wanted to review in the hopes of brainstorming better, safer ways for them to serve and engage our patrons. The STACS group was divided up into 6 smaller working groups: General Rules and Policies and Regulations Review, Restorative Justice, Social Services, Social Work Interns, Training Needs Analysis, and Action Learning with Security. I was asked to lead working group number 6, Action Learning with Security. My role was to lead the many interested staff in action learning sessions with our security leaders, other STACS members, and senior leadership to find forward actions for fostering better communications and ways of working between our branch library staff, our security, and our patrons. These groups definitely have challenges communicating. The groups would explore what is the role of security at the New York Public Library? How can we keep ourselves safe? And how can we keep our patrons safe? It was my hope and my goal to break down the barriers to communication and to foster and build better partnerships between our staff and our security team. Our staff had concerns about policing at the library, but they were often afraid to speak their mind. Our security supervisors are New York Public Library staff, but most of our actual security guards in our 92 neighborhood branches are contracted with an outside firm. They are not our employees. Having staff that were wary of or afraid to trust in our security department was definitely a problem of great urgency to our organization. So utilizing action learning methods seemed like a unique and creative way to address this significant and urgent problem. We recruited participants through the 200+ group listserv of the STACS group, and also via email to our approximately 90 library managers. We had a great response and great interest. We convened 7 groups of 10 people. Each group met for 90 minutes on 2 consecutive days. All of the groups met in May and June of 2021. I led every group, and I asked one person to be the problem presenter. The problem being for all of the groups, the questions mentioned earlier. What is the role of security at the New York Public Library? How can we keep ourselves safe? And how can we keep our patrons safe? One person in each group volunteered to present the problem or a similar version of the problem. 1 week prior to each meeting and 1 day prior to each meeting, attendees received a reminder email from me with a link to a 2-minute video explaining action learning and a link to our ground rules and leadership skills that they might choose to focus on. Leadership skills that the groups chose to work on were: be brave, stay focused, communicate, be concise, listen intently, focus on what emerges, teamwork, and during trying times, be hopeful. Because action learning positions questions at the core of every session, It helps each member of the group to develop critical thinking skills, and it helps to foster communication and respect among the group members. Action Learning's ground rule number 1, statements can only be made in response to questions, and anyone can ask a question to anyone else, ties in beautifully with one of the New York Public Library's core values, which is be curious in all aspects of your work. Asking questions helps us to develop and expand upon our curiosity. Actually, the methods of action learning tie in with all of the New York Public Library's core values. Be helpful, be resourceful, be curious, be welcoming and inclusive. The level of participation in every group was amazing. Everyone in every single group contributed. It was especially helpful having more than one session with the same people because it allowed for trust to develop, and the groups worked better together by session 2. This enabled everyone to speak freely, both when asking difficult and probing questions and when responding to them. This feeling of a safe space to express themselves made our sessions more productive and our outcomes more positive. Also, putting together diverse groups of people makes it really interesting as they try to emphasize with and understand problems they may never have experienced before, yet they can offer solutions to each other that will work. It was very eye-opening for staff to be able to ask questions of and listen to answers and stories from our security teams, and from our security staff to really have dedicated time to listen to and ask questions of staff on the front lines in a very open and supportive environment. So much learning and sharing was taking place. It was great. All of the groups explored questions such as, what does safety mean? Which rules are the most important? What is crossing the line? When do we call the police? What does it look like when the line of when to call the police is different for everyone? Regarding disruptive youth, how do we assess as things are escalating? We don't know what our contract guards are supposed to do. What are their duties? Security, what would you like staff to know in conflict situations? What would you like staff to do in conflict situations? How do we build relationships with our security guards when they aren't present for our staff meetings because they're not New York Public Library staff? Do our incident reports ask the right questions? Are they filled out properly? Some staff don't know about them until they need to fill one out. Certain themes seem to appear in every single session: safety, incident reports, training, policing policies, labeling and phrasing, the words that we use to describe people and the words we use to describe incidents, and library rules versus library operations. In September of 2021, we all reconvened again as a smaller group to discuss our progress. Many of the suggestions and ideas that were surfaced during these summer action learning sessions were already being incorporated into current staff trainings. I'm pleased to report that many new trainings and resources were instituted for staff as a direct result of our action learning sessions. Additionally, and most importantly, attitudes were changed. Instead of the us versus them attitude that staff and security entered the meetings with, they left with the sense that we are all part of the same team, the same organization. A question that was often asked in each group was, what can we all agree on? As one security supervisor emailed me afterwards, that was extremely powerful. Some of our results and outcomes for staff in all of our 92 locations were: 1, a training called Incident Reports. Keep calm and write the report. It's a 17-minute-long training that covers the what, when, and how of incident reports, and it addresses concerns that were directly surfaced during our action learning sessions. 2, a training called Working with Your Security Guard. It features 3 library managers talking about best practices when starting a new security guard, or also to be used as a refresher with a current guard. Again, it addresses concerns that were surfaced during our sessions. 3, both of those trainings mentioned are pre-work for in-person training given by our interim director of security. Our Bronx networks completed their training in June. Our Staten Island networks met this past July, and all Manhattan staff are participating now in September. 4, in addition, our special investigation officers are being trained to lead team sessions for every branch location. The contract security guards will be paid to attend those meetings, which is completely new and has never happened in the New York Public Library in the past. So that was a great win. And 5, more resources have been made available to staff in the form of both online and in-person de-escalation trainings. So, in conclusion, our action learning sessions definitely did unlock the barriers to communication between our security and our staff, and they were successful in making changes in our organizational culture. This could not have happened without utilizing action learning methods. Thank you for listening.